Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video by me, the Witcher George. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I haven't really talked about before, and it's actually surprising to me that I haven't ever talked about this, because I think it's a really interesting subject within the sort of Witcher lore. And this is about the character of Avallac'h, who I have made a lore video about in the past, but I specifically today want to explore a particular area of this character, and it's to do with his sort of moral grey area. And I'm going to be exploring this by tackling this in the way of, I'm going to be thinking about it as, is Avallac'h evil? So, I just wanted to start by introducing some central information about this character, because I think that it's really important to get a general idea that in the books, this character is, I wouldn't say completely different, but quite different to how he is portrayed in The Witcher 3, and a lot of people might not have read the books, or might not have a complete understanding of them, or might have just forgotten because it's been a long time. So let's just get into a little bit about what he's like in the books, and just discuss some of his central sort of parts of this character. So I think the key difference is in the games, he seems, I suppose, more of a sort of kind, let's say morally grey, but leaning towards good character. He's at least on your side. But in the books, he is pretty much entirely there just to take advantage of Ciri, and this is largely due to the history that we are shown he has. So, if you guys didn't know, originally this character was supposed to be with Lara Dorren. I believe they were supposed to be married, or at least together in some sort of way. It's quite vague, I think, a lot of this stuff, but he was meant to be with her at least, and he lost her to Cregennan of Lod, who she fell in love with and eventually had a child. I mean, you guys don't need to know that entire story, but it's important to know that he lost the woman he loved, or at least the woman he had some sort of obsession with, to a human. And because of that sort of history, he's always had this sort of dislike of humans. And it's not really shown so much in the games, this sort of disdain for humans, but in the books it's explored at least partially, and it's something that I think is really important to remember about him. He lost the woman he loved to a human, and that's not something that I think he has ever let go. So the love with her seems to be sort of complicated, at least from my assessment. It seems to be partly based on possibly actually loving her, thinking that she's this sort of beautiful woman or whatever it is, or just having some sort of connection he feels with her. But I think the most central part that he loved about her was her kind of genetics. He has this sort of love of the elder blood as he has a love for her, but of course he also loves elves a lot more than he would love a human. So it's the fact that he felt that by being with Lara Dorren, he could get her sort of genetic, let's say, advantages and then pass it on, and he could sort of create something interesting. I mean, the games do explore this a little bit with Avallac'h having a hand in, I suppose you could say, well, genetically engineering Caranthea, and he has a sort of care for Caranthea despite the fact he joined the Wild Hunt and did some sort of, horrible things. He doesn't really seem to care. He has this kind of, he's sort of like a scientist in a way. He's this guy that he wants to sort of make things and have advancements and see how things play out, and I suppose in regard to Lara Dorren, he also potentially loved her as well, but it was largely to do with that special gift she had, which, as we know, is the Elder Blood. And that leads into what I'm saying. He has an obsession with the Elder Blood, and this is something that is also explored in the games, but in the books, it's pretty obvious he has quite an interest in it too. I mean, in the games, you can remember he had this big chart of all the bloodlines. He has this thing with Ciri as well. You know, he's researching all of it. He has a respect for the Elder Blood. He wants to, in the books, well, I'll get into that in a minute, but he obviously has this big obsession with the Elder Blood. So in the books, his story is essentially that he tried to make Ciri conceive a child with Alberon, who was the king of the Aen Elle, and I say was because in the games he's murdered. But he wanted to essentially bring the Elder Blood back to the Aen Elle Elves, and I suppose he didn't want to do it himself, and by do it himself I mean conceive a child with Ciri, because it seems pretty, this is my opinion, it seems pretty obvious to me that in the books he didn't really like Ciri, he just likes the Elder Blood. I mean, for him, he says directly that Ciri is a child of Cregennan of Lod, she is not a child of Lara Dorren. He almost hates the fact that that is sort of part of her. He doesn't sort of believe it. He thinks of her as this sort of human, that she's just got this thing that he needs, which is the Elder Blood, and it's sort of annoying that she has it, and he doesn't actually want to sort of interact with her or be with her. It's sort of this disdain. You could call it, in a sense, it's sort of racism in a sense. I mean, it's, I'm not even sure if you would call it racism, because, you know, elves and humans are not, they're different, completely different things, you know, but, yeah, he does not like her. You know, he has this sort of superiority thing, but also he wants the elder blood, so it's this sort of strange relationship, and he's sort of dealing with her because he feels he has to. And also, you know, he loved Laura Doran, and seeing this girl who is the descendant of this quite traumatic thing, for him at least, where he lost the person he loved, and she also died. You know, that's part of the story as well. It's difficult for him to deal with, so it sort of reminds him of his own failures. So he has a lot of these sort of baggage, I suppose you could say. So that is Avallac'h largely in the books. That's largely sort of the way that he is behaving, at least in the books, and what his motivations are. And you could say that it's morally grey, but I would describe it as quite bad in a way. He's sort of acting on all these impulses. He wants to get the elder blood. He wants it for his own species. I think that largely it is not a good thing that what he is doing in the books. He's trying to take advantage of Ciri. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say evil, but definitely not on the side of the right. I mean, guys, he tried to blackmail her into staying in this world, refusing to let her leave. She had to sort of escape by it. Well, she escaped by herself in order to sleep with this old king and have a child with him, you know. I mean, that's the only way he would potentially let her leave, and then even then, probably not. I'd say it's bordering on evil. It's pretty horrible. Now, in the games, he is I wouldn't say completely different character, but he certainly had a change of heart. He helps Ciri in a variety of situations, as you can see if you played The Witcher 3. He helps her escape a lot of times. He helps her control her powers. He provides so much support for her. And most importantly, he doesn't try and conceive a child with her. No, I mean, most importantly, what he does is he actually works with her to stop the White Frost. And this is regardless of whether she, let's say, lives or dies. We don't actually know if she dies, but, you know, she stops the White Frost regardless. He works with her to do that. He does a good thing ultimately. Now, you may be wondering what caused this change. Well, in the game's lore, it's largely to do with Eredin killing King Alberon. Avallac'h had a lot of respect for King Alberon. He was essentially just the leader of the Aen Elle Elves, almost like a god in a sense. He was like their eternal leader. He's this guy that, you know, it's sort of inconceivable that he died, and then he did. And it's like, well, I don't want to work for Eredin. I don't want to help Eredin. I'm going to help Ciri. It's sort of a bit petty, I suppose, but also, yeah, he found a solution to the White Frost thing. It's largely to do with a bit of retconning from the writers to mean that Ciri can stop the White Frost, which is a strange thing. The White Frost is different in the books and games, and maybe I can get into that in a future video. But yeah, essentially, he kind of had a change of heart. He saw a way forward with the Elder Blood, and he decided to work with Ciri as opposed to sort of hating her and trying to get the blood back for the Aen Elle Elves. I think he kind of lost a lot of maybe his own respect for his people because his king died and then Eredin is in charge of them, and he's like, well, I don't want to work with this. That's essentially why he changed, at least by the game's lore. So this brings me to the central question of this video, which is Avallac'h an evil character, or at least a bad person, well, elf, or bad character? Not badly written, just a bad character, if you know what I mean. Not a kind, good character. And I would say, as with most things, it really does depend on how you look at his actions. In the games, he is doing it for the greater good. He is doing it because he wants to stop the White Frost, he wants to try and prevent the end of the world and all that sort of stuff, and he wants to try... Well, it's not even the end of the world, it's this existential threat that will consume all worlds. So he's doing something very good by working with Ciri, supporting her, trying to take care of the Elder Blood, and allow for this to happen. I mean, there's evidence as well, even in the games, that he does still kind of dislike her. There's that, I forget her name, but there was that kind of female elf in his laboratory, and she was saying like, oh, he doesn't actually like her, you know, he hates her, and Avallac'h was like, oh, you know, let's not talk about that when you try and bring it up to him. But yeah, so there's still possible that he doesn't actually like Ciri, but he's trying to do something for the greater good, and in a sense, you could say that he is a good character in that way because it saves the most lives, and it's stopping something that will destroy every world. So yeah, you could say in the games he is morally grey, but ultimately good if you went for a sort of utilitarian way of viewing his actions. But if you look at just the books, I would say that it is largely selfish reasons. He wants Ciri's sort of powers to be brought to the Aen Elle. It isn't necessarily to stop some sort of existential threat, I feel. It's just sort of to empower the Aen Elle Elves. I mean, in the games they go further with this, and it's this idea that the reason Eredin wants the Elder Blood is because they want to invade the world of the Aen Elle, which is the world of the Witcher. And it's a bit like, well, you know, I mean, what were they going to do in the books? It's all this sort of vague stuff that a lot of it is not completely explored, and it's a bit complicated. But at least he didn't work towards that, I suppose. But he did want to get the Aen Elle Blood back to the Aen Elle Elves, and it was largely sort of selfish reasons. I mean, as I said before, he mentions that his general view of humans is sort of lower life forms compared to the elves. And you could make arguments for this, that humans don't live as long as elves. Elves live a very long time. They have this eternal life. They have this art and everything, and they created all these things, blah, 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 blah. But it's one of those things that just because something lives longer, does that mean it has, like, significantly more value? It's this whole debate around value and things. But I would say that, from my personal opinion, in the games, he's not necessarily a kind character, but he is doing something for the greater good. Ultimately, that is what he's seeming to aim for. But in the books, he is a selfish character who is largely not a very nice guy. He's kind of sneaky. He goes around, he tries to trick Ciri into sleeping with his king and not letting her leave. It's all sort of morally quite bad, I'd say, but ultimately he thinks it's the best thing for his people, possibly. But then it's obvious he also has his own sort of hang-ups about humans and Cregennan stealing his girl, I suppose you could say. So it's one of those things that I think it really is up to what you think. Evil is a very strong word to use. I would say he has done evil things, but ultimately he is just kind of a different character in the games and books. But I would love to hear what you guys think. What do you guys think of Avallac'h? Do you think he is a bad character, a good character? Is there any thoughts you've had? Is there anything you think I've missed in this video that you would like to share with me? I'm actually really curious about that. I'm going to be trying to make some more videos soon, as I'm going to be trying to get some video ideas together, make some interesting videos like this. I enjoy this sort of thing, so if you'd like to see more of that, please like today's video, comment down below, let me know what you'd like to see if you have any ideas. I'd love to have a go with it. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Always love talking about The Witcher. It's one of those things that whenever I start chatting about it, I just think, you know, this game is incredible, and the books, you know, it's this universe. It's like a comfort zone for me. I get to put the music on, I get to put a video together, always fun. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe for more, like today's video, and I'll see you all next time. Have an awesome rest of the week.